Hi, my name is Dr. Erica Gergerich, and I'm going to have a brief presentation on asynchronous online instruction for students in a Hispanic serving institution at New Mexico State University near the United States and Mexico border. Just an overview of what I'll cover. I'm going to talk about our unique region and the student demographics that we serve, and then I'll touch on asynchronous online learning and some of the pros and cons of those, especially for our particular demographic of students. I'll very briefly touch on principles for student learning with technology, but that's really designed for future communication or discussion between us, as well as the example online course discussion that I'll share. Those are just kind of, teasers for potential future discussion that we have based on this brief introduction. So New Mexico State University is relatively rural when compared to other states in the United States, meaning that, many people live on the periphery, not within a city, but out in the country. So we have 33% of our residents in the state live in a rural area, out in the country or in the desert more than in a city or town. We also have relatively high rates of poverty in New Mexico. Almost 20% or 1 in 5 people in our state experience poverty. Many of them are children. So if you take those two things into mind, the rural nature and the fact that we have many people in poverty, these are important considerations for us when we are serving students that are facing situations such as these. It means that they are likely to have issues with accessibility to internet or technology. And then third, we have a very large Hispanic or Latinx student body. The Department of Education in the United States holds that you have to have 25% of your student body identifying as Hispanic to be a Hispanic serving institution, and we have doubled that. So that's a very unique and wonderful feature about our student body. And then finally, because we are close to the border, the Mexico border, we have many first-generation students that are not just first generation to the university, meaning that they don't have any family members or parents who have previously attended college, but they're also first generation to the United States. So just a whole lot of new information in a university, as well as cultural information, just a very new experience for many of them. And so we have 33% of our students at the Las Cruces campus for New Mexico State University identify as being first generation to college. So that's quite a bit. So next I'm going to talk about some of the pros and cons of asynchronous learning. So when I say asynchronous learning, I mean teaching that occurs online without any live component. So there's no real-time engagement between the professor and the student or the students with one another. It's not in real time, not live. So one of the advantages of this is that there's no set time to meet, which allows some of the students who might have accessibility issues some flexibility. They can come when it's convenient to them to work on the course materials or engage with the course materials. They don't have to at this time be in front of a computer for 1 hour, which is much more strict and more difficult potentially to access internet and course materials. Students also have the ability to research or reflect before they post or react to a prompt from the instructor or to other students in the class. So of course, that's a good thing. But also studies have shown that ESL students or students who are English as a second language might be hesitant when they're in an in-person class in a classroom setting that's live. Right next to other students, they may be more hesitant to engage in discussion, but that they gain that confidence when there's an asynchronous discussion and are more likely to engage. So of course, English as a second language is the reality for many of our students here at New Mexico State. And then also those who control the pace of learning are better able to store information to long-term memory. So control the pace, meaning that they can pause a recorded lecture, maybe go back and listen to it again, maybe watch it a second time. So having that control allows them to actually, consider the information on their own terms. And you can imagine also for students who are English as a second language or ESL students, this is also a great benefit. So those are some benefits of asynchronous learning for our students. Also, of course, some disadvantages would be that discussion boards are one thing that are commonly used in asynchronous learning, and many would say that there's a decreased quality because there's a delay between a post and a response. And so that lag doesn't allow for that kind of flow of communication. It's just more choppy than if you were having a discussion in class and, could bounce off of one another. And then finally, it's really difficult to facilitate engagement with lack of real-time communication. So we want our students to learn from each other as well as, from us, and take information and synthesize it and apply it, and all those wonderful experiences that lead to learning, not just listening to lectures. So we have to get creative, which is why I'm sure we're all here. But I think a lot of people see asynchronous as less engaging, and so I think that it's important that we see the positives of asynchronous learning, and maybe reach to be a bit more creative when it comes to that mode, because it is a better method for some of our students for a various reasons. So in our future discussion, some of the principles for student learning with technology that I have found useful are through the authors Moreno and Mayer. They have 5 principles for student learning with technology, and they include guided activity, reflection, feedback, control, and pre-training. Touched on control a bit. Feedback also could be a great starting point for discussion, and also I have a discussion post that my students participate in, that I've designed, and hopefully allows them to engage with one another and learn in a more active way, considering it is an asynchronous class. So I'm not going to go into detail about the discussion post. We can talk that more, but it is in a professionalism class. And one thing I will say about that is that the students take this professionalism class because, as I mentioned earlier, they are oftentimes first generation. And some of the things that we need to know about the professional world, being a licensed profession, is it's cultural information, it's social information, it's things that we learn from our parents' experiences in the professional world or their experiences in college. And if you're first generation, you may not have access to that information. It may not be a part of your world. And so we've found that our students are in particular need of professional skills. And so we offer that in an asynchronous class for them. And some of the topics that we cover are professional writing and documentation for social work in particular, appropriate use of technology, running effective meetings, which is especially important. Imagine, Robert's Rules of Order are very complicated and strange if you've never, learned about those things. And those aren't typically the types of things that you learn about in a class. But, it's part of that hidden curriculum that we want to make sure our first generation students have access to. So we can discuss the format of putting together discussion boards, as I have for this particular class, and how they link to learning objectives, what the content looks like, and various techniques that we use to keep our students engaged in learning in that way rather than simply being a passive participant. So these are the things that I think we could discuss further. Methods of online instruction with special populations. I've discussed the students that we have in our region, and how asynchronous learning is beneficial for them in particular. And then also we might talk about assignments that reflect the principles for student learning with technology that I touched on. So I look forward to learning from you and hearing what you have to say on the topic.